Mr. Owen Zaret, who's going to be testifying us about some observations and response on Jewish advocacy on the municipal level and local school districts in comparison to other Massachusetts communities. Owen Zaret, former city councilor, Jewish community organizer, and your general observations. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to kind of set the expectations for the chairs of the commission and the commission members and the public as well, this is a little different than what you just heard. We have a lot of very qualified speakers talking about some much broader topics. The speaker before me gave some excellent statistics, as well as the two speakers prior to him, some very specific issues that come under the constellation of anti-Semitism. This is unfortunately one of the data points in that data. And so it's very personal to me. I probably rewrote this testimony a number of times. It's part of the reason I'm a former city councilor. And because of the nature of the testimony, I have to be unfortunately specific about some of the people who were involved in these interactions. But I do so, at least in my intention, in the most respectful, professional, objective way. So I just wanted to preempt this with that statement. And it's great to be here. So good afternoon, members of the commission, chairs Cataldo and Vilas. My name is Owen Zaret. I'm a former city councilor, Jewish leader, and parent in Eastahampton, Massachusetts. I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to testify before you today, to share my experiences, my concerns, and my hopes for the future. I want to thank you for the work you've done historically and for the work you will continue to do in the face of rising hate and anti-Semitism. I'm proud to represent my community, but I'm gravely disappointed I've had to pursue this level of exposure in order to demand accountability and bring attention to the Jew hatred that has permeated our schools in Eastahampton. I proudly served Eastahampton City Council for 4 terms. I won clear referenda in each election. I was popular with constituents. I maintained a busy legislative record, and I established myself as someone who listens and is active in the community. Throughout my time in Eastahampton, I've been aware and I've witnessed concerns of marginalization of the Jewish community, ranging from cultural insensitivity to more overt anti-Semitism, anti-Jewish sentiments from municipal appointees, frank use of Jewish stereotypes by city leaders, a long history of scheduling important events on Jewish holidays with responses like, "This isn't a competition to see who is more oppressed," when asked to respect the high holidays. Like all students in our district, Jewish students deserve equal access and opportunities to education and to have their basic civil rights honored in our educational system. Unfortunately, I can confirm, based on a number of reports I've received, that this has not been the case in our district. The repeated targeting and abuse of Jewish students for their ethnicity, heritage, and religion, including Nazi salutes and taunts, and graffiti including swastikas and "I hate Jews," go unpunished, and school officials refuse to address it. When a Jewish student was forced to leave the school in my district because he is unsafe, and even I found the system unresponsive, I realized I needed to pursue a broader audience for this local issue. Students across our nation have found themselves the targets of divisiveness and discrimination, thanks to some of the horrific anti-resources like the ones we saw from the NPA. And when this comes to our community, it is up to us to address it and make clear to any authorities that this ideology does not reflect our values of equality and respect for our diverse neighbors and community. Just a couple years ago, I collaborated with Jewish organizations to bring forward a municipal resolution against anti-Semitism. Thank you, Peggy Schuker. It was intended to create framework for our city and beyond to undo these historical issues. The document outlined recommendations for government, community, and schools, and though it passed unanimously, it quickly fell out of the minds of the city council and mayor. The response from my colleagues were anti-Jewish tropes on October 8th. A ceasefire resolution was brought in as a follow-up, demonizing the existence of Israel, and where 2 rabbis were described as Zionist conspirators in public meetings. The rhetoric heard in those hearings mirrors those that led to the recent shootings in DC and the violence in Colorado and in Pennsylvania. Our food co-op fought a BDS campaign. We talked about that earlier. Driving through town weekly, you could see anti-Israel protests that stray from criticizing the government and slide into classical anti-Jewish tropes. As an at-large city councilor, my job was to represent our residents and to act and respond when serious matters came to my attention. It's my responsibility, or was, to ensure the safety, well-being, and equality of all of our students, including the Jewish ones, who are facing bigotry in schools. But frankly, we all have these obligations when overwhelming statistics of K-12 anti-Semitism and community anti-Semitism requires us all to act now. My understanding of this issue transcends municipal duties. It is a fundamental part of my lived and learned cultural experience as the only Jewish person in city government. I grew up in a conservative kosher home and attended Solomon Schechter School K through 8. My mother was a trailblazer in the feminist movement, reading Torah and teaching B'nai Mitzvah. As an adult, I've continued to be active in Jewish organizations, study contemporary Jewish issues, read from the likes of Dara Horn and Deborah Lipstadt, and listen to podcasts, never missing an episode, of Jonah Platts being Jewish, and stay up to date with all of the data coming from legacy organizations. I've been an active and vocal leader in our Jewish community for nearly 2 decades. So my plan to combat these specific instances, as well as overwhelming anti-Semitism across the Commonwealth, was to reach out to school committee and administration and help engage Jewish organizations and resources. These people were my colleagues and my supposed allies, and tasked with protecting our community and our children. We not only had to be proactive, given the overwhelming data facing the Jewish community, we had to be reactive with it actually happening within our community. And so for close to, or probably over a year, I would come forward with actual events happening to our students, bring forward real statistics about the broader issues of Massachusetts and American Jewish communities, and make suggestions. I wanted to impress on them how our K-12 students today become college students of tomorrow, and seeing what is happening on college campuses, and then when those college students graduate, is significantly concerning to me in terms of the community safety for Jews in America. And so I'd make appeals to the administration and elected officials. They would rebuff and ignore me. They would refuse invitations to meet and problem solve. Another incident would occur. I would inquire about it. They would minimize it or obscure it. They refused to discuss concerns about MTA materials with me, referencing the union rep and not wanting to discuss it any further. Examples of this include our interim superintendent refusing to allow consideration of our anti-Semitism resolution by the school committee. Our school committee chair stated we don't need specific resources to address anti-Semitism, and that she further has no obligation to discuss the matter anymore. My own city council president, a trusted confidant, a local educator, told me our schools are just too busy to worry about anti-Semitism, minimalized the impact of swastikas, calling them an ancient peace symbol, and told me I should just mind my own business. Our mayor, who couldn't seem to find time over a year to meet and talk about this, told me we have to consider both sides of anti-Semitism. I don't know what that means. I've documented these incidents I'm aware of through communications and conversations with residents, students, families, and staff. As noted, these include swastikas drawn in our elementary, middle, and high schools, swastikas making up the majority of anti-Jewish graffiti throughout the country based on recent statistics. I was horrified to hear each time how administrators would minimize the impact of those to the Jewish community. A high school student being harassed and targeted with anti-Jewish tropes just for wearing a t-shirt with Hebrew letters. But I want to share with you the one incident that truly broke my heart and stays with me every day as I wear my own Jewish star. A child in our school was targeted with Nazi salutes and taunts, such as, "Here comes the Jew." This child, who was proud of his Jewish heritage and wore his own Jewish star, removed it out of fear and shame. He had to leave the school and be homeschooled. And I've thought of him every single day as I've been preparing for this testimony. And after a year of bringing forward my concerns for the Jewish community, I learned of more anti-Semitic graffiti and "I hate Jews" written in a child's notebook in high school. And so at this point, I figured the jig is up, right? This had reached a critical mass, and the schools would act appropriately. Bring in the resources I've been asking about. Work with our community to better support Jewish residents. Well, instead, our high school principal concealed this from the public, specifically instructing me not to tell anyone, refrain from sharing with the broader public. I reached out to administration, mayor, city council, and our school committee, only to receive no response. It became clear to me that the policy of our school district was delay, deny, deflect, and delegitimize. This is when things became hostile. Rather than recognizing the value of collaboration and protecting our Jewish community, our school committee recommended I be censured for my advocacy. My multi-year work with the city trying to protect Jewish students and my transparency with constituents was depicted as an existential threat to the broader community. This became a debate not about the merits of policy recommendations, the threat of anti-Semitism, the safety of Jewish students, or simply mitigation. This became a debate about my humanity, classical deflection and reversal, the 3 Ds of anti-Semitism: demonization, delegitimization, and double standards, and I will also add dehumanization and demoralization, were on full display in my final council meeting. The Jewish community came and they spoke up about their appreciation for my advocacy, and my detractors, with our school committee leading the charge, would speak to the low quality of me as a human being. One of the foundational elements of Jew hatred is casting Jews as conspiratorial threats to society. In my experience, this was exactly what I was seeing at that meeting. This wasn't a logical discussion. It was a verbal pogrom. These people spent more time building a case against a prominent Jewish advocate than they did addressing the Jewish hatred in our city and schools. This was a public and violent response to my standing up for Jewish students. There was no way to have a rational conversation in an irrational system. And so I chose to resign for the city council in order to better use my voice. Neighboring communities are not without their own similar problems. However, the way they've handled them has been in stark contrast to Eastahampton. Cities such as Westfield, Uxbridge, Longmeadow, Belchertown, Amherst, Northampton, they've all experienced similar, albeit fewer incidences. We know the statistics. It's not, you can't escape what's going on right now, right? But what makes a difference is that they immediately were honest with the public. They called it anti-Semitism. They engaged resources. They created a plan. They denounced it, and they stood with the Jewish community. But here, in my city, we had the trifecta of anti-Semitism: ignoring actual incidents, refusing to address national statistics, and attacking local Jewish leaders when they came forward offering solutions. The implicit policy of Eastahampton schools is concealment and retaliation. The principal in Westfield showed us all how to be a mensch and address a swastika on a laptop. Easthampton's proven to be a shanda, with a principal and head of school severely mishandling hateful actions towards the Jewish community. And while each incident in isolation is worrisome, the accumulation of all these incidents is a lack of appropriate response or recognition or expressed concern for the Jewish community is a systemic failure. The attempts to conceal or minimize are egregious. The ones that reach the sunlight are only described as bullying. Well, this isn't bullying. This is anti-Semitism. It's aggression against Jews. The tolerance and enabling of these actions across the entirety of city government is deeply disturbing and a symptom of a deeper societal illness. A Jewish child leaving our school for Hitler salutes and the Jew is behind you, that's anti-Jewish hatred. This is a potential civil rights issue. And I never thought I'd see the day, after all the work I've done in my community to promote a transparent, visible, and proud Jewish community, to see the children in our community and our state not being able to receive equal opportunity or access to education based on their ethnicity or heritage. And now, the members of our Jewish community are afraid. They were already hesitant to speak up. Our school committee and administration has effectively silenced Jews by attacking a local Jewish leader. They claim they are victims of my advocacy. They're not victims, they're perpetrators. This is just a piece of the more broad negative Jewish attitudes in the city. And this isn't far removed from the Attorney General's recommendations to Easthampton in 2017 to address racial bias issues. But what we're seeing here is the Jews don't count edition. Well, I'm here to say Jews do count, and we need to be heard, and we need to be treated with dignity and respect, especially our students. The behaviors described only further perpetrate more deeply entrenched negative attitudes in our community. So kulchem shema li ve'azor li. All of you, hear me and help me. I need you to take my words into your mind and your heart. This needs to be more than a testimony. Legislators, legacy organizations, state departments, I know what is happening here is happening across our entire country, but I need you to help me make a difference in our city so that we can use this as a case example for others. And so as a case study in more focused, broader policy recommendations, I have some of the following thoughts. When events such as this has transpired, we need oversight and investigation. This is to ensure that at the worst, there are no Title VI issues, and at best, we are maintaining appropriate cultural sensitivity and preventing bias against Jewish people. In this specific case, we need attention from the AG's office or other appropriate competent State Department to conduct an independent evaluation of what's going on. The requirements for reporting these incidents need to be clear, and there must be strict penalties for not doing so. And I also said this before, we need to teach our children how to think, not what to think. We need to evaluate how we teach about Jewish people beyond just Holocaust education. There's a much broader history going back millennia there, the world's oldest hatred, right? As with any discrimination or racism, we need to support Jewish voices when they speak up. We should be leery about retaliation or silencing local Jewish leaders who express concerns about the community. These voices need to be lifted and validated. These need to be community standards. We need to consider adoption of the IRA or other similar straightforward definition of anti-Semitism in order to have a clear landscape for managing these issues. And we need a full acknowledgement that Jews belong here, they have a right to dignity and safety in our community and our schools, and we need to reinforce that when people speak up for Jews or any other marginalized community, that we need to listen and collaborate and not dehumanize and ostracize. I can only imagine how this sits with you, Senator Vilas, being in your district, but I'm sure to all of you, I can't imagine that hearing this is easy. I'm here to answer your questions. I'm here to be a resource as we all move forward in Eastahampton and beyond. We are only successful in fighting anti-Semitism and other forms of hate if we put aside our egos and work together. This needs to be a collaboration. And so to the people listening or who will listen to this, my hope is that we can find a way to come together and solve this together. Kulanu biyachad, everyone together. Thank you.
Mr. Zaret, thank you very much. Questions, members, please. Oh, 1, 2.
So first of all, thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm really sorry that that was your experience. And that was the experience for that young man. I don't know if it's a young boy or girl. And I'm really sorry. That's not the community that any of us want to live in. But I also want to thank you for your courage coming here today and your courage all along from what I've read throughout this process. My question has to do, and forgive me if I'm remembering this incorrectly, but I'm going back to the session that we had with DESI, where a question arose around, is there a way to report to DESI when things don't go right or are not getting addressed in a specific school? So my question to you is, did you reach out to DESI? What was the process, if you did? And what kind of support or lack thereof did you get?
That's a great question. And just to answer your first statement, first of all, thank you. I can't tell you as a Jewish person, though, how honored I am to be here right now and representing the Jewish people in this capacity, because my story is not unlike many others who don't have the opportunity to come before a state commission and make a change. I did not communicate directly with DESI, and that's for, I think part of that certainly is my own fault, but part of it also was that there was a lot of discouragement to do so. It was unclear, this is an indirect way of kind of answering your question too. First of all, it was kind of unclear what the reporting mechanism was. And it was unclear when I was kind of observing all these things going on in the city, whether these things were being reported, what guidelines were being followed. I know that with some of the incidents, I spoke with law enforcement to find out if they were notified. In many cases, they weren't. There was investigatory powers taken on by the school committee, where to me, at least as a layperson, it seemed like that was potentially inappropriate and could have interfered with chain of evidence, for instance, when you're talking about hate speech and potential threats to the community. So, but that's a long way of saying I did not engage with DESI, and because it was made very unclear to me if I could even do so. I was told that the parents had to, and many of these parents were afraid to speak up. There's one of the parents I spoke about today with the Hitler salutes. She's been really great to talk to, and I've offered her all the support I can. There's another parent who basically they wanted to just get through the school year. They wanted their child to graduate and get out of there. And I talked to, certainly as you could tell, the administration and school committee were of no help in that way, and dissuaded me from participating. But just in terms of talking to people on the state level, it wasn't exactly clear what the pathway was. So no, I did not contact them, but I also wasn't sure if I was even if I should have.
So, Mr. Zaret, one of the things you're pointing out that this commission is incredibly mindful of is that the ambiguities, the inconsistencies based on where you are in the Commonwealth is something that, part of the benefit of your testimony today is actually giving that a real world example, if you will. But with your message has been stated by multiple folks. But again, it's kind of that human piece of it, but we're well aware of the inconsistencies, what that process looks like. But that was very helpful.
Yeah, do you mind if I just
Yeah, please.
append that really quickly? Yes, and I mean, like, so one thing is we have these great legacy organizations with where you can report incidents, but they don't have enforcement. They're not able to do any enforcement, right? And so there's like this disconnect between these really robust reporting opportunities that mostly go towards collecting statistics, but on the state level, to your point, it's kind of murky as to exactly how to do it and what comes of that, and then also like what requirements you have to actually even meet to be able to report it. So can a simple bystander such as myself report? Does it have to be, the traumatized family that brings these forward? So I mean, I think making those things really clear, but also really open to any community member who wants to come forward, because these departments can certainly just screen them out, say, no, well, thank you for coming forward, but this, we'll take this under advisement that this doesn't quite meet the criteria we're looking for. So, Commissioner.
Thank you.
First of all, I wanted to thank you for sharing. I'd like to echo the sentiments of our fellow commissioner who appreciated your courage. Likewise, I do as well. I'm here as a representative from the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents, so what you shared hits hard with me. Prior to your speaking, 3 other folks spoke. Every single person alluded to all, and all being all students. You also, in a beautiful conclusion, alluded to all students, and we have an obligation to ensure that these things don't happen, and that we serve all students in whatever capacity they choose to arrive at school. Our job is to approach our roles with a level of humanity that's deeper than just surface. I had a tear in my eye when you shared the story. I'm sorry you went through what you went through. What I took very, very clearly from what you delivered was there needs to be a clarity around a reporting mechanism, not just for students, but for anybody at any level. And that's imperative, because it's not just about students, it's also about what you experienced. So I think it's imperative that as a commission we think about not only how do we serve all students, but how do we serve all people, and ensure that someone who's experienced what you've experienced has an opportunity to appropriately have that addressed. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Please.
Thank you for your powerful testimony. I'm Jamie Hogan from the Attorney General's office, and I just want to recommend and encourage you to share your story with our Civil Rights Division. You don't have to, you're impacted, you have a direct impact with your story, and I think even if you refer yourself as a bystander, there's something we can look into and we can investigate that further. So maybe there's a way to do it online, there's a simple way to do it, we can call our office, but before we leave today, I'll make sure I give you that information so you have everything you need to do to make that report, if you so choose.
No, please, I'd like to. And I mean, again, like, I want to be very clear that my goal here is not to impugn anybody. It's to bring about change, especially, and it's to bring about justice. And ultimately, my hope is that the other people involved will find a way to collaborate, because ultimately, it makes us a better community and a better society when we can do that. And I think one of the biggest failures here was the failure to put aside whatever barriers that we were perceiving and understanding that we all have common goals. So yes, I certainly would like to do that, because I want to create a framework again to the prior speaker's comment that this is about all children. Obviously, in the capacity of this commission, it's about protecting the security and dignity of Jewish kids. And so yes, I'd love to have a conversation about that going forward.
Owen, thank you so much for coming here. As others have said, it requires a significant amount of bravery to come. I also want to give a shout out to the co-chair. It requires some political courage to have somebody from his district talk about a difficult issue that involves other people in his district. So thank you, Senator Vilas. I want to go back. There's so much of what you said, which is, there are so many different instances of your story just now where something could have been done better. And what you have really done today, I think, is draw out some of the key pieces that we can kind of fill in, the gaps that we can fill in as a commission in our recommendation. I expect that we will be making some draft preliminary recommendations for next school year before our final report is due, and I want to encourage you to take a very close look at those when they are released for consideration by the public and by the commissioners, and give us your thoughts and feedback on that. But there's something kind of implicit that has come up in my community a couple of times, and so I want to try to match my friend's political courage here, because these things are hardest to talk about when they happen in our own community. Our second meeting, we had a superintendent from Acton Boxborough, and he gave some really powerful testimony to this special commission. What I think was most powerful about it is that he expressed contrition for not doing something right the first time. And that, in many ways, is the beginning of getting better. We all make mistakes. We all try to do our best, but sometimes we just have to admit that something didn't go wrong, didn't go right. And I want to use this opportunity to encourage school leaders and other types of leaders who are out there, when you recognize that something didn't go right as it regards anti-Semitism or anything else, the response is not to entrench yourself in the wrong course of actions, but to be open-minded to seeing how you can be better. And so I just love how Superintendent Light brought that to the fore, and I think that's something that, from what you said, maybe could have been done a little better here. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Please.
Chairman Cataldo said what I was going to say, just so much better. I really, you provided a blueprint for the many ways that a Jewish person experiences marginalization, sometimes anti-Semitism, and I think it does point to gaps that we need to look at. And I just want to thank you for taking the time to constitute a very complicated story and present it so clearly and well. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I hope that kid is still wearing his Star of David.
Well, he took it off, unfortunately, but I will say that, my goal is to try to foster a community around him that makes him want to put it back on someday.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions?
All right, that concludes our meeting. Thank you, Owen. Thank you so
Thank you.
much to everybody from the public and online who's here and has been paying attention to what we're doing. Special commissioners, thank you so much for taking the time and for all of your participation. We will see you soon.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Anyone object to that? Hearing none, we're adjourned.